Welcome to the Global Forest Protection session. Global forests are key for preserving biodiversity and absorbing carbon emissions, yet we are losing our ancient forests at an alarming rate. The panel today will hear case studies from on-the-ground sources of forest defenders in Rwanda, Brazil, Indonesia, and the EU. We'll be looking at what are the key drivers, impacts, and solutions to stop deforestation. The session will look at global measures, including through the UNFCCC and traceability processes, chain of custody, to preserve what we can for the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet. We'll achieve a global understanding of deforestation causes and effects from across the 4 Green Party federations and all continents. We'll look at both local and global knowledge. In 2020, just as an indication, 12 million hectares of tree cover, that includes trees as crops, was lost, was 12% higher than in 2019, and a lot of that was due to the deforestation in the Amazon. We're hoping to form a network across key countries to continue discussions around deforestation from the participants in this session, and to discuss how we can reverse destructive forestry practices. So I'd like to start with asking Teba Ustwikma to give us a welcome to the session. Teba, could you give us a welcome to the session?
Okay, I would like to have a welcoming remark from Dayak language, which is actually not my native language. I'm from Banjar tribe, but it's also one big tribe in Kalimantan. So the word is, I'm gonna say some of the word, and I ask you guys to answer with arus, arus, arus. And you can use your left hand instead. So I'm gonna say something, I'll pause, and then you answer with arus, arus, arus. Would that be okay? Tabe salamat lingon alatay, salam sujud karandem malempang, adil katalinu, bacuramin kasaruga, basengat kajubata. Arus, arus, arus.
Arus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Teba. Okay, so a couple of our other panelists have joined. Welcome everybody and welcome to the participants. Our first speaker for today is Teba, and Teba joins us from Borneo. She comes from a family of farmers in the South Kalimantan province and has been directly advocating against deforestation in Borneo, Indonesia. She is now in the Parti Hijau, the Green Party of Indonesia executive body. She's had an interest in ecological politics since being a student at Lombok Manggarat University, where she joined the Nature Lovers Association in early 2000. And she's been going strong for 20 years since then. She's been an observer of the 2004 elections, and she's been a staff member of South Kalimantan Wali, the Friends of the Earth Indonesia. And now she works on sustainable government initiatives across all regions. So Teba, over to you. Would you like me to do the PowerPoint for you, or would you like to do it?
Yeah, I think from your side would be better.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just getting it on screen. Okay, just take 1 minute to load. Okay. I'm going to share screen. Sorry, folks, just take 1 minute. Here we go. Parti Hijau Indonesia. Share. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Great.
So I think I just start from the first slide is Partai Hijau Indonesia, and where in the application form it's missing one letter, the A, so it's Parti Hijau Indonesia instead of Partai Hijau Indonesia. It's actually like this: Partai Hijau Indonesia, Indonesia Green Party. We say these 3 words as our tagline, bersih is clean, adil is justice, and lestari is sustainable. So we basically run with this 3 words here in Indonesia: the clean, the just, and the sustainable Green Party. So I'm gonna talk with the key drivers of deforestation in Indonesia. Basically, it's this 4 big part: logging, palm oil plantation, mining concession, and government policies. I'd like to, when we talk, I have this pie chart here to show that the least big was the government policy, because currently Indonesian government has policy that is threatening the forest of Indonesia. The 2 policies are the new capital of Indonesia transferred to Borneo in Penajam Pasir Utara, and then the other was the food estate policy. So in the name of COVID, they said they want to have a long enough sustained food for the whole country. So they built what they called food estate project in 5 provinces. It approximately 600. Wait a minute. In Central Kalimantan only, they open forest area of 600,000 hectares. And this project is not only in Central Kalimantan, but it's in 5 provinces in Indonesia: Central Kalimantan, Papua, East Nusa Tenggara, North Sumatra, and South Sumatra. So, and then mining, as you know, Indonesia is one of the biggest coal production. The picture there was from Greenpeace. Greenpeace Indonesia. The top of the left, what is left? The mining hole in East Kalimantan. And then the palm oil plantation, they also one of the biggest key drivers of deforestation in Indonesia. We go to the key impact. So for the key impacts, I'd like to start with a movie. It's a short movie, product from friends in Walhi, Central Kalimantan, but they submit the movie for Earth Beat competition prior to COP of 2021. Can we just click that? So oh, it doesn't go to the link, Michelle?
I can see it. Can you see it or not?
Oh no, maybe you just need to share screen with the.
Okay, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Can you see the new share now? Can you see the screen now?
We're still in the in the old screen.
Okay. All right. I think we're going to have
Maybe
to
I
miss
just-
it and come back.
We skip it and then come back.
Yeah, and come back. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the key impacts for sure is the cycle of so-called natural disaster, because the deforestation in Indonesia is not only happen in the mineral forest, but also in the peat wetland forest. So the one that has, each of these forests have their own function. And for us in Kalimantan, it's been a cycles of so-called natural disaster where we lost forests, we lost the trees that absorbs the water that regulates the water cycle. So we have flood and landslides during the rainy season, and smog and haze in the dry season. And then internally displaced communities, according to data of our party, Indonesia has
Tabu, we've lost you.
8 million people internally displaced due to disaster. That's for the period of January to the end of the year of 2021. We take the data from Badan Nasional Penanggulangan Bencana, the National Disaster Risk Reduction Indonesia. We compile it from that. 8.4 million people internally displaced last year only, 221. And then rising conflict, human conflict, indigenous people conflict with the corporations, and then interspecies conflict where animals come into the human livelihood place, and then loss of biodiversity, loss of ecological function of forests, and to some extent, loss of forest also means loss of identity. Why I say this? Because this is the two pictures are from Javanese culture and from Dayak culture. From Dayak culture, we have this thing called Batang Garing, or the tree of life. So it symbolizes the harmony of up world and bottom world, the connection between our world, the interspecies world, human, animal, landscape, plants, with the spirit world. And the similar thing happened to this Gunungan philosophy of Javanese culture. So this loss of forest could be loss of identity, especially for indigenous people. Can we go next, Michelle? Yes.
Can you see that? Is that it?
I think, yeah.
Can you
I think
see?
we can.
Have you
Basically,
got...
here I just want to talk about greenwash. This talking about deforestation is talking about supply chain, where we have demand and supply and demand, supply chain, where for now the trend is consumer realize that the need of green lifestyle. What then I write there as so-called sustainable standards for timber, for mining products. Somehow they have something like green coal like that, and then still unmet demand of timber and palm oil. This somehow bring practices of greenwashing along the supply chain. The new recent investigation by Greenpeace Indonesia, I think, with Auriga, Yayasan Auriga Nusantara, they have followed the route of palm oil, the dirty palm oil, to the certified sustainable palm oil. So that practice is currently happen in Indonesia, and the coming are more dangerous. They have what I put there is naskah akademik kelapa sawit sebagai tanaman hutan terdegradasi. They are trying to validate that palm oil is forest plant. It would be a forest cover, degraded forest cover. So they are trying to make deforestation the drivers of deforestation as a hero, I think. And then currently, Indonesian government policy is to assist corporates with the newly agreed regulations. Also for timber, they have excluded ulin and other 10 threat under threat or threat status in IUCN trees out from the decree of the ministry. So they are the plants and the animals that is protected by the government. They exclude the 10 trees, including ulin, I think not many of you familiar with that, but the tree is very difficult to grow big. But once they are become a tree, they are one of the most quality wood in the world, I think. And then go to the next slide. We have the term of ecocide. The potential of loss due to the climate crisis in Indonesia is around 544 trillion rupiah between the 2020 and 2024 if the government still go with the business as usual policy. Not to mention the 8.4 million people that have to be relocated due to the disaster last year, 2021 only. So we need to really focus on what we can do and to stop this disaster caused by the destruction or loss of the ecosystem. Because in Indonesia, it's not only done by the corporation, it's also done by the government to their people. We have several things we can do to reverse, restore. I propose we, Green Party Indonesia, propose to restore the interspecies interconnectedness. So we are a web, an interconnected life web between species, and so not only human, but we need to restore the interspecies interconnectedness. And then return land rights and forest management to those caring, nurturing rights owners, be it local government, the village level, or local indigenous communities. And then support local initiatives to guard and rehabilitate forest ecosystem, both institutionally and financially. I'm not trying to really mention something like climate fund here, because I still have low in seeing the climate fund as a way of the north, the people in the north trying to push us people in the south to keep to keep the amount of the forest, but they themselves didn't want to lower their convenience. So it's like it's still, I don't still find the justice in that scheme actually. So we can find the alternatives hopefully after this, and then enable this initiative to have their voice in national and global decision making, represent the less represented, because representation is everything, I think. And we cannot really heard unless we are in the table. So that's from me, from us, Partai Hijau Indonesia. You can find us in the website at the corner, and hopefully Michelle can play the movie if I'm not already taken too much time talking.
We might see if we have time at the end, but
Yes.
We started late because of technical difficulties. But Taba, thank you so much for the wonderful work you've been doing for many years, and we're all very impressed with the hard work you're doing. Now, Fahimi, would you like to unmute? Fahimi is from another province, which is a semi-autonomous area, Aceh, on the northern part of Sumatra. So, Fahimi, would you like to go through your PowerPoint? If you unmute. We can't hear you.
On their way. Fahimi, you'll just need to accept the invitation to be a panelist, or try again.
So this is the forest strategy in Aceh, and here is, can people see the PowerPoint okay?
Yeah, we can see that well, Michelle, and I'm just about to get Fahimi up.
Okay, thank you.
Great, so Fahimi, you should be able to use your video now.
You just need to speak to your PowerPoint, Fahimi.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Nice to hear your voice. There we go.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. I am Fahmi, and thank you for this great opportunity. I have important experience to be a part of this forum. Let me introduce myself. I am Fahmi. I from Aceh Green Party. Is one candidate, a new local party in Aceh. For the information, in Indonesia, only Aceh, one province in Indonesia that can have a local party in Indonesia, and we with our team to build a party, a local party that namely Partai Aceh Hijau or Aceh Green Party. We are struggling to become one of the election participants in the upcoming general election. Currently, we are preparing our party to be registered in the Indonesian legal system. I tried to talk to the forest, an important issue for today and the future. Okay, thank you very much. And for what is forest problem in Aceh? Illegal logging, encroachment for plantation, and mining are three major problems that cause forest destruction in Aceh. Based on data, the area of Aceh forest cover loss between 2015 and 2018 reached until 74.007 hectare and 26,000 hectares per year. Aceh total forest cover area is around more than 3 million hectares. Deforestation not only invite landslide and drought, but also cause human wildlife conflict. Because we have a big problem that related with forest in Aceh. Exactly, we will face many problem and dangerous. What is the big problem loss of forest in Aceh? The first one is about infestation and on the land base, like meaning a plantation, big plantation, illegal logging, and other. This problem bring people to a community, especially indigenous people lost land for how to make sure their life continue and sustainability. So we face a conflict between indigenous people with a big company and the government. This is one problem is about land grabbing. And then what is route to forest ratio? The first, we have some strategy as to make sure road to forest ratio in Aceh. The first one is forest ratio campaign, and then we want to make sure law enforcement to make sure the forest, water, indigenous people right on land is protecting. And then preparation of special planning that oriented to the protection of forest area. And then because forest is people need, a global need, so stakeholder must be participation in forest protection. And then we also how to develop a model of customary community-based forest management. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fahimi. And I didn't really introduce you, but Fahimi is working on communications with the Aceh Greens, comes from the western part of Aceh and has been involved in ocean protection and forest protection from an indigenous perspective for many years. So thank you both. I just think it might be nice to go to the chat box just briefly and see if there's any questions relating to the forest that might be useful at this point. They're talking about diplomatic or political relations in forest management as a solution. Polluter pays, that's from Senator Alex Migusha. I think we can keep the questions maybe going in the chat box. Okay, so we need full-size screen, sure. So Fahimi, thank you very much.
Yes,
Our next, You're welcome. Our next speaker is Dr. Gashumba. Are you with us there? Frank, is Dr. Gashumba with you? This is in Rwanda, in
Hi,
in
Michelle.
Central Africa.
Just trying to promote Frank as a panelist. So I will do that, and then he should be with you shortly.
So I would just introduce Dr. Gashumba while we're waiting. Might be the best thing. It's strange to introduce someone when they're not here, but but anyway. So Dr. Gashumba's working in Rwanda. He's working on forest management and protection in Rwanda, and he's also on the board of forest management for Central Africa, which of course includes the Congo Basin, one of the highest rates of deforestation after Brazil on the planet, and just before Indonesia. So do we have Frank's access sorted?
Yes, I have joined.
Thank you.
I'm using the phone. Try to use the computer as well shortly. Yeah, I talked to him. I think he had problems connecting, so perhaps he has not joined yet. I gave him a Zoom link. Perhaps he has also. But we have two people, I think, from Rwanda now. There is Senator Alex Mugisha. I think he wants to speak. Maybe we can give him a chance to speak. But I'll also share something from Rwanda. Maybe I can start a little bit, perhaps.
Okay, so Senator, would you like to say a few? We can only have you speak if we give you access as a panelist. What I might suggest is we come back to Africa, if that's okay, and we now go around the world to Brazil. Is that okay? And then we might have Dr. Gashumba back with us by then, but if not, maybe Senator, we could get you to speak instead would be good. Does that sound right, Frank, to you? Frank, do you think we leave, or what do you think, or should we do Africa now?
I think Frank has left, Michelle.
Okay. All right, I'm just having trouble getting out of full screen to go to the next video. There we go. Many things open here. Okay. Okay, so we're now going to watch a video from our panelist, who is Juan Carlos from the Green Party Brazil, and he's going to be introducing himself.
Olá, meus amigos verdes do Brasil e do mundo inteiro. Nessa palestra, nós vamos falar sobre o futuro e a economia sustentável na Amazônia, na floresta amazônica, principalmente na floresta amazônica brasileira. Primeiro, eu queria agradecer ao Global Greens por abrir esse espaço para ouvir a voz da floresta, né? Eu me chamo José Carlos Lima, eu sou advogado ambientalista, ativista ambiental, sou presidente estadual do Partido Verde no Pará e diretor da Fundação Verde Herbert Daniel. Aqui no meu estado eu já desenvolvi alguns cargos públicos, fui deputado estadual, fui secretário de Estado, fui secretário de Meio Ambiente da capital, Belém, e faço minha militância toda na defesa da Amazônia, nas questões ambientais. Essa é a minha participação aqui. A floresta amazônica é uma reserva de vida ameaçada, né? Quem olha esse mapa que está aí na frente, dá para você verificar o relevo da Amazônia. Então, você tem, no fundo da Amazônia, você tem a Cordilheira dos Andes, porque a Amazônia é uma bacia fechada, né? Ela tem uma entrada que dá na direção do mar, por onde entram os ventos alísios que empurram toda a evaporação, e essa evaporação, quando ela chega na floresta, que ela recebe a evaporação da floresta, né? A respiração da floresta, os chamados rios voadores, então ela se transforma em chuva, né? Porque para o fundo da bacia nós temos a cordilheira, para cima nós temos a formação Tumucumaque e para baixo o Planalto Central brasileiro. Então ela se precipita toda nessa região, né? E se transforma em chuva e alimenta a grande rede hídrica que existe nessa região. Então, se não tiver a floresta, toda essa terra, o solo da Amazônia, ele vai sendo levado pelas águas até em direção ao mar. Então, o solo dessa região é muito pobre, né? Mas esse sistema hídrico, né, natural, ele é o responsável pela criação de vidas, de muitas vidas, de novas vidas. Então, a importância da floresta amazônica é fundamental, porque ela é uma reserva de vida ameaçada. A floresta amazônica, ela começou a ser devastada muito fortemente durante o processo de ditadura militar do Brasil. Os militares brasileiros, com o discurso de que a Amazônia é nossa, que o mundo não pode interferir, que isso fere a soberania do Brasil, né? E que a Amazônia é uma terra sem gente para gente sem terra. Então, eles fizeram migrações forçadas para dentro da Amazônia, inclusive com bônus oficial para quem devastasse a floresta. Quem derrubava a floresta ganhava salários extras e ganhava o título de terra para devastar a floresta. Então, foi uma política oficial do Brasil, né, no governo militar, de realmente destruir a floresta amazônica. Então, eles usaram a floresta como uma espécie de fronteira agrícola, fronteira de expansão econômica do Brasil, abrindo espaço para hidrelétrica, para grandes projetos, e isso fez um processo que não tem parado a partir do momento em que, nesse período, se abriu algumas estradas importantes, como a Transamazônica, que deu acesso a áreas florestais densas, e como se continua fazendo hoje com ramais, com vicinais, algumas legais e algumas ilegais, né? Nós temos na Amazônia pelo menos 4 vilões da floresta amazônica, 4 vilões, né? Um deles, o primeiro que eu queria abordar, é a quadrilha de madeira. Nós temos na Amazônia 2 tipos de indústria madeireira. A indústria madeireira legalizada, que faz manejo florestal, que tem licença ambiental, que respeita todas as técnicas e respeita o próprio ciclo da floresta, né? Mas a maioria do desmatamento na Amazônia é feito por quadrilhas de madeireiro, né? Eles entram na região pelas estradas abertas, pelas vicinais, que são estradas secundárias, e vão alcançando, ou eles mesmos fazem estrada por dentro da floresta e vão alcançando o estoque de madeira nobre. Então, eles tiram toda a madeira nobre. Depois que eles tiram essa madeira nobre, eles esquentam a documentação com corrupção, com fraude mesmo, né? E com a passividade de parte dos órgãos ambientais, os órgãos do governo, os órgãos governamentais. Então, eles esquentam essa madeira tirada de forma ilegal e fazem exportação para países que compram madeira nobre da região amazônica. Então, são verdadeiras quadrilhas que roubam. E depois que eles tiram a madeira toda, vai-se então para o processo de retirar totalmente a floresta secundária para, em seguida, transformar aquela área em área de pastagem ou área para plantio de soja, plantio de grãos, principalmente soja na região amazônica. E com o processo de grilagem de terra, porque a maioria dessas terras são terras da União, são patrimônio público. Então, eles fazem isso com apoio político, apoio de grupos políticos locais e apoio apoio até oficial governamental, que depois vem por trás e faz a legalização. Um segundo grupo que trabalha devastando a Amazônia são os garimpeiros, os garimpos ilegais, né? É proibido no Brasil garimpar em terra indígena. Existe todo um processo, você precisa de uma legislação que até hoje não foi feita no Brasil, né? Mas os garimpeiros, eles entram principalmente na área florestal, em terra indígena e alcançando os leitos dos rios para garimpar. Então, o garimpo é ilegal. O ouro também passa por um processo de esquentamento, de documentação. Então, eles vendem o ouro como pesquisa, fazem pedido de concessão de pesquisa para áreas próximas das áreas ilegais e por dentro dessa documentação eles passam o ouro e o ouro chega no mercado legal, mas inicialmente começando pela essa ilegalidade. E o processo é muito rudimentar, né? Apesar de ter, em algumas regiões, ter equipamentos caríssimos, dragas caríssimas que puxam e sugam o leito do rio. Eles sugam o leito do rio, o cascalho todo vem e passa por umas peneiras especiais. O que fica na peneira, eles jogam o mercúrio para agregar o metal, e esse mercúrio se dissipa no ambiente, contaminando peixe, contaminando pessoas. Muitas aldeias indígenas, muitas etnias estão completamente contaminadas por esse processo do mercúrio utilizado na região. E para trás eles vão deixando a devastação do rio, matando espécies. Então é um crime absurdo que conta também com a conivência governamental. O terceiro problema na região amazônica são o que eu chamo de vilões da Amazônia, que é o boi, a soja e o minério, que é um modelo econômico que foi implantado desde o governo militar e que continua em vigor até hoje, inclusive porque gera imposto rápido para os governos locais, né? Então você tem o boi, por exemplo. O boi é incompatível. Para você criar boi na Amazônia, tem que tirar a floresta. Então, quem permite a criação de boi na Amazônia está conscientemente retirando a cobertura florestal. E às vezes vem uma justificativa de nós estamos usando área degradada. Então, o madeireiro vai, invade a floresta, degrada a área, e aí, como ela já está degradada, e vem a desculpa que você pode usar essa área para fazer produção, para você dar um destino produtivo para aquela área, quando, na verdade, é um engodo, porque tudo é uma cadeia de destruição. Então, criar boi na Amazônia destrói a floresta, porque é incompatível criar boi com a floresta, plantar soja na Amazônia também. E a cadeia mineral na Amazônia é uma cadeia que concentra renda, é um modelo que não gera emprego, né? E que usa todo o mineral da Amazônia de forma bruta, sem que haja uma verticalização para gerar emprego e gerar renda aqui no local. E os mineradores sempre dizem, onde está o minério está a pobreza, onde está o minério está a pobreza. O minério só rende dividendos fora da mina, em lugares muito distantes, onde está o mercado e não a mina, né? Então, todo lugar que tem minério, ao redor, você encontra realmente a pobreza. Então, esse é o terceiro modelo, né? E, em seguida, nós temos as consequências perversas dessas três situações, desses três fatos graves que eu relatei, que é a pobreza, né? No Pará, só no Pará, são 3,5 milhões de pessoas com um rendimento de menos de meio salário mínimo. Então, a região da Amazônia é uma região de muita pobreza, de muita desigualdade, porque há uma brutal concentração de renda na mão dos barões do minério, dos barões da madeira e das grandes empresas mineradoras. Então, a consequência desse modelo para a Amazônia é a geração de pobreza e desigualdade, né? Então, essa é uma consequência perversa desse modelo econômico aqui na Amazônia, né? Qual é a importância da floresta amazônica? A floresta amazônica precisa ser preservada, por quê? Porque ao retirar a floresta, você altera o funcionamento dos ecossistemas. Todo mundo sabe disso, toda a ciência sabe disso, toda a academia sabe disso. e faz alteração climática, tanto para o Brasil quanto para o mundo. E nós estamos aí com as emergências climáticas dizendo que nós não podemos, de forma nenhuma, negligenciar com esses grupos criminosos, com essa política conivente, com os erros que estão acontecendo na região amazônica. E a degradação com a ameaça dos habitats, das espécies, e com a ameaça desses animais, tá certo? Então, essa é a primeira importância da preservação da Amazônia. A segunda são os prejuízos econômicos e sociais para o ambiente. Então, você gera pobreza, gera desigualdade, gera destruição, perde biodiversidade, perde talvez até elementos químicos, ativos químicos, né? Produtos químicos essenciais para medicamentos que ainda não foram inventados e que podem combater graves doenças. Então, é fundamental que a gente segure essa floresta em pé por causa da riqueza em biodiversidade que ela tem. O impacto na fertilidade do solo e nos ciclos biológicos. Então, é grave quando você não trabalha a preservação da Amazônia, né? O aumento dos gases que colaboram com o efeito estufa, o aumento de mortes e doenças respiratórias em pessoas e animais. Aqui na floresta amazônica tem alguns vírus ainda desconhecidos. Se a gente está hoje nessa pandemia mundial, enfrentando um vírus como o coronavírus, você imagina o que tem de vírus ainda desconhecido no interior da Amazônia, né? Vírus que causam gripe maculosa. Hoje, alguns já são conhecidos como o da dengue, da malária, mas tem alguns vírus transmitidos por animais que ainda sequer foram pesquisados e que é muito grave se a gente não tomar conta disso, né? Uma das consequências graves na região amazônica ofende diretamente os jovens da Amazônia, não só os jovens das aldeias indígenas, mas os jovens das periferias da grande cidade, porque nós temos um déficit de emprego muito alto, o setor produtivo da Amazônia é restrito, não gera emprego em quantidade suficiente para o número de pessoas em condições de emprego. Nós vivemos um bônus demográfico na Amazônia com uma quantidade muito grande de jovens e de pessoas adultas em condições de emprego, né? E sem ter oferta de emprego para isso, o que gera na região amazônica é a criminalidade e a baixa escolaridade do povo da nossa região, né? O futuro da Amazônia, o que fazer para salvar a floresta? Nós precisamos muito, muito de pressão sobre o governo brasileiro. As organizações governamentais que atuavam na Amazônia com grande força foram completamente dizimadas nesse primeiro governo que nós tivemos aí, de um governo conservador e liberal. Então, o primeiro momento que eles fizeram foi destruir completamente a relação do governo com as entidades não governamentais, com as ONGs, enfraquecendo essas ONGs que passaram a não ser porta-voz das pautas que elas defendem. Então, elas perderam a possibilidade de falar, de dizer, de pesquisar, de gritar. Então, nós precisamos de uma pressão muito grande sobre o governo brasileiro para que ele proteja o bioma. Nós precisamos que o governo brasileiro seja instado a dar autonomia aos órgãos de comando e controle, que são os órgãos que fazem a fiscalização e o controle ambiental na região amazônica, como o IBAMA, o ICMBio, os organismos estaduais, né? O Sistema Nacional de Meio Ambiente, o SISNAMA, o Conselho Nacional de Meio Ambiente, tudo isso foi sucateado e destruído nesse período que nós estamos vivendo aqui na região. A proteção especial das unidades de conservação e das terras indígenas. O último governo parou. Já era difícil anteriormente convencer os governantes no Brasil a decretarem unidade de conservação de biomas importantes que não podem ser tocados, que têm que ser preservados, e principalmente das terras indígenas. A demarcação de terra indígena no Brasil sempre foi problema. E agora piorou muito, piorou demais, porque nenhuma unidade de conservação foi criada nesses últimos anos e nem demarcação de terra indígena, e ao contrário, se tenta reverter terra indígena que estava em processo de demarcação. É preciso também investir em tecnologia, em apoio à economia das populações tradicionais. Nós temos um conhecimento ancestral muito forte aqui na Amazônia. As pessoas sabem como manejar com os produtos, com as ervas locais, né? E esse manejo poderá render produtos sustentáveis, produtos ambientalmente corretos para o Brasil e para o mundo, inclusive para a qualidade de vida das pessoas, de saúde. Então é preciso apostar em tecnologia para que as populações tradicionais, as populações ribeirinhas, elas possam ter ganho suficiente para não ser cooptado pelos madeireiros, pelos garimpeiros, e se transforme em agentes dessa destruição do bioma que elas ajudaram a preservar durante tantos anos, né? A pesquisa na Amazônia, transformar os conhecimentos ancestrais em produtos exportáveis é fundamental. Aumentar os gastos por estudantes na região, ofertar cursos profissionalizantes através dos mais jovens, né? Então é preciso investir em pesquisa, investir em conhecimento, investir em tecnologia na Amazônia, e isso vai fazer a Amazônia realmente combinar preservação, uso sustentável com dignidade da pessoa humana. Então eu finalizo essa minha palestra pedindo a vocês um grito pela Amazônia. Vamos salvar a floresta.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Everyone, the reason he wasn't with us in person, it's about 4 a.m. in Brazil now, but he very much wants to stay involved. And talking to him, we all know since Bolsonaro has taken office there, the destruction of the Amazon has increased at an alarmingly rapid rate, including huge road construction to open up what was remote and pristine areas previously. It's really interesting that the progressive movement in Brazil, the Green Party, and have also been liaising with the Workers' Party, Lulu's party, to build a bloc in the next election, which is October this year, for the forests. So there's a lot of political work from the opposition, from the not-for-profit NGOs, and from the Green Party there to make forests a priority issue for their national election, which would make a huge difference, which is about 10 months away. Okay, so that was our colleague from Brazil. I'm now thinking, is it possible to go to Africa? Gishumba works in a remote forest in Rwanda, so he was having difficulty logging on. Frank, what do you suggest we do? Do you think? Millie, are you able to run the global forest one from PowerPoint from Africa, or will I do it? I've got it on screen.
Yeah, up to you.
Yes, hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Gashumba has joined. He told me, I just called him.
Wonderful.
Yeah, he's on the call, yeah.
Oh, so he's here. Okay, so Dr. Gishumba is our next.
Yeah, could you just pop your hand up for us, and then we'll be able to locate you?
So while we're waiting, Dr. Gishumba is the Executive Director of REDO, which stands for Rural Environment and Development Organization, a great acronym in Rwanda. He's a PhD holder in environmental management and a conservation practitioner involved in building capacity. He is on the steering committee of the Commission for Central African Forests and has written papers on forest conservation and indigenous knowledge systems for biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. So thank you for coming out of the forest, Dr. Gishumba, and hopefully we have you now to present. And then after Dr. Gishumba's presentation, We then have one more panelist, Janis Stoppel from Greenpeace in Germany, but he will also give us an overview of a lot of the political structures around forests too. And then we're going to have a great Q&A because we've got some very good people here working on forests all around the globe. Okay, that's not the right person.
No, that's Senator Alex Mugisha.
Hello, Senator Alex, and welcome, and nice that you're here, Senator Alex. Welcome.
Thank you,
Frank,
Thomas.
it's great to see you. Thank you for coming. Could Gashumba raise his hand, or Frank, do you know what he is signed on as? Do you know what he
Let me give him a call again, just to be sure if he's still on it. Yeah.
I'm just, okay. I'm wondering, Janis, how do you feel about going while we're waiting? Do you feel like going next, or shall we wait?
However you want.
One more time. Sorry.
However you want. I can start.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think let's do that. Let's go to Janis to hear from Europe, and we'll come back to Africa, I think. So Janis, are you going to run your PowerPoint, and have you accepted the panelist request from tech support?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so we'll leave it to you to run your PowerPoint. Is that okay? So we'll come back to Africa. So I'm just going to introduce Janis, who's joining us from Hamburg in Germany. He is the political advisor at Greenpeace Germany on forest and land sector policy issues. And he has a focus on the role of forests in climate adaptation and mitigation. His voluntary engagement as an activist for protecting forest included the Styx Valley in Tasmania in Australia. He's also worked on the Tapajos River Basin in the Amazon. And I know also throughout Eastern Europe and in Africa, he made the discovery of the biggest connected peatland on the planet in the Congo Basin, and that was a major breakthrough for protecting huge parts of the Congo Basin. In the first part of his presentation, he'll tell us about EU forests, and in the second part, he will talk to us a little bit about the international frameworks agreements and trade regulations that affect supply chain and protecting forests. So Janis, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for already the great presentations by my former colleagues on the panel. I'm just gonna, can you see my presentation all right, or?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Is it full screen?
It's not full screen. Okay, F5
yeah,
makes it full screen. Yeah.
Is it okay now?
That's great, thank you.
Wonderful. Right, yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the global context in terms of the politics that affect forests, but also then I'll give some clear examples on the situation in Europe and what Europe is doing with its forests, but also in terms of its impact that Europe has on other forests. So in terms of content, I thought that it might be interesting as well to have a little bit of a science recap on where we stand and why forests are so key for international policy making, but of course also for local national action. I'm going to briefly speak about the CBD and UNFCCC, the key conventions that we have internationally on forests. I'm going to speak a little bit about the EU Green Deal and its implementation of forest relevant policies in the EU. And I'm going to give a short glimpse of how the new green, or also green, German government is planning to change policies here that have an effect on forests. First of all, again, a recap on why forests are key. Of course, one of the key issues is the carbon problem, the climate crisis that we face. Also, one of the key elements why we face the climate crisis is that we have, as humans, completely depleted the natural vegetation cover of Earth that has been, a very large part of the elements that regulate the climate. We've burned it to a large extent, but of course also we have diminished the ability to soak up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through so much forest destruction. Of course, the solution there is also not only to reduce emissions extremely fast and urgently, but also restore forest and ecosystems, which is often forgotten in this whole offsetting context that we can, compensate emissions. No, we need to do really both. If we don't, the human niche will shrink of survival. So under current development pathways, it's really not looking good for humanity. And that is especially also happening in areas where we have tropical forests now standing. So the urgency is clearly there to act, not only in reduction of emissions, but also in terms of increasing the land sink. And it needs to go hand in hand, like the 1.5 report that came out from the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, a few years ago, clearly shows us that we need a drastic cut of emissions corresponding to a change where we change from the existing land emissions that we are currently producing through agriculture, forest deforestation, and so on, back to a time where we restore the whole vegetation and land cover of forest to soak up carbon that is in the atmosphere. Another key report that I wanted to briefly touch on is the land report from the IPCC. I think it really helped to kind of, again, put a spotlight on not only the role of forest climate change, but also in terms of adaptation and so on. And yes, then we have the other part of the story, the restoration potential is really something that we need to also grasp still, because over the last years, there's been some key signs coming out where exactly what type of restoration of forest protection and different forest management is key. And I think that needs to be taken into account when we talk about national policies later on. For example, for the developing countries, the forest protection and also restoration is, of course, a large part of the story, where they have already depleted a lot of their forest stocks. Just maybe to emphasize the role forest used to have. If you look at the left side here on that graph, you can see without human influence what kind of green planet we would have on the top left corner. Now humans have, of course, changed the face of the Earth a lot. And on the top right corner, you see where the biggest forest restoration potential still is. So there is a huge potential there that we need to tackle, and that really means to not only let forests grow, but also support it to be able to grow. Yeah, that's a huge step for protecting the climate. The other part of the story is, of course, the biodiversity crisis that we face as well. I mean, it's pretty impressive that we as humans have managed to set in place the 6th mass extinction of species, and that of course has a lot to do with also the destruction of ecosystems that are also on land very full of life, and that of course is in a lot of cases also forests like the Amazon and the Congo and so on. Coming coming to an end on the science part, I think it's really key to look at this science to understand the drivers more and more. I know from a local perspective, seeing vast soil plantations or the logging in the Congo, you see that, but I think for policy, for influencing policy making, I think these science reports can have a big impact to also put forward evidence on why governments need to act. And they need to act because if we don't manage to secure nature, to protect nature, there's also no future for us. And it's really not so simple. We're currently destroying Earth, and we need to do much better to protect the ecosystem functions that are there on planet to support our lives and those of future generations in the future. Often forgotten by let's say policy nerds in the UN spaces, because it's a highly complex process that they are undergoing to tackle the big challenges of today. But nevertheless, I think it's a key process to set the scene for national action. And with the 1.5 report that came out, these kind of pathways were clear, and without the Paris Agreement that set the pace or set the targets for this type of action, we wouldn't see quite a lot of national action that is happening now. On climate, of course, that's the Paris Agreement. On the biodiversity front, also very related to forests, we are currently waiting to actually see much more progress at the next Conference of Parties 15 in Kunming, which must deliver, again, a new set of goals, but especially important, a new framework agreement that has this kind of ratchet up mechanism that expects nations to do much more, but also to deliver funding and to be able to. So on the international front on climate, the goal of the Paris Agreement and the framework agreement itself expects nations to come up with national goal sets, and they're called NDCs, national climate targets that are included in those NDCs, and they need to be updated from time period to time period, and that offers policy making and on a national level to also always demand more from your government, and that's key element now also in legal in the legal SWOT approach that we can use. Because so that's the one big element that can have an impact on forest if you look at the land use sector in these climate targets. The second one is that they're still talking since the Paris Agreement around international mechanisms to increase international cooperation. So they're talking about new offset market schemes that are supposed to be able to transfer different outcomes from, for example, forest protection measures to countries like Germany or big other high emitters. We personally, and we as Greenpeace are not a friend of those schemes because we don't believe they really work, and it's really hard to control the actual additional benefit for climate protection under these schemes. But also other non-market mechanisms are discussed. Then there's the third part, that's loss and damage and adaptation finance, which is actually crucial, especially to also forest countries, because you of course need funding and support to be able to protect ecosystems, and that's, I think, a very important part here, especially due to the fact that forests are absolutely vital for adaptation to already existing climate. On the Convention on Biological Diversity, like I said, we're looking forward to the COP15 and hope that a similar framework agreement to the Paris Agreement will be formed, and that a lot of countries will sign up to the ambition, at least, that 30% of land is protected by 2030. it's for some countries easier than for others, but I think it makes a big difference that if countries manage to get this ratchet up mechanism in there, so that really demands nations to be more ambitious, also on the biodiversity protection front. The goals that we set ourselves 10 years ago in Aichi failed, or governments failed to achieve on them. So it's really key to also update them. And in this whole process of protecting land or making sure that ecosystems continue with, being vital and making sure that nature lives. Of course, the recognition of indigenous people's rights and also their traditional knowledge is absolutely key. And I think, especially if you're talking about protecting land from a kind of Western conservationist view, it is absolutely vital to really make sure that land rights, indigenous rights are respected. So summing up the international kind of situation, the Secretary Guterres, I think, had a really good quote that we pretty much just, we need to stop the war against nature, and that's pretty much, for me, sums it up. So coming back from the international level to the kind of national, or in this case, EU implementation. For the EU, the whole process of the Paris Agreement was really like the guiding flanks for developing a rather large policy package that they called the Green Deal, which includes a lot of climate policies, but also a lot of other policies that include issues on sustainability, biodiversity protection, and also forests. They managed to set themselves a fairly ambitious goal, but far not enough. But the important thing was that this goal set ratcheted up the goal for increasing its land sink. And increasing the land sink in the climate goal set, but also in the EU climate law, then had implications on the member states. On, for example, Germany, that the climate law in Germany, which was developed, also needed to correspond with an article to the land part of the EU. So now we have a system where, by law, these type of articles have goals in them to increase the forest sink, or increase the land sink in a large part of that. And that's called the LULUCF regulation. It's a part of the big climate packet that the EU implemented. Another big part is the EU Biodiversity Strategy. With that, the EU tries to kind of foresee what is happening, or what is potentially going to be the outcome of Kunming. So already in this biodiversity strategy, they set themselves the goal to protect 30% of land and seas of the EU by 2030, and included another layer that 10% of land need to be under strict protection. And that strategy alone now offers us as NGOs and as civil society, of course, a lot of elements to demand more action from our governments. So that's something that already now sees a lot of good outcome, or a lot of potential. And another key policy process in the EU currently is the ambition to form a law that ends deforestation-linked supply chains. So the law seeks to prohibit entities to place goods on the European market that are linked to forest destruction, to deforestation and ecosystem destruction, inside and outside the EU. So it would have implications on the supply chains that come from Brazil, Indonesia, and other places, but also it would have implications on the way we treat our forests within the EU. Coming back at the LULUCF sector, I think it's a really key element to really boost and demand more action on forest protection efforts nationally. This LULUCF sector, like I said, enshrined now in the climate law with a clear goal to increase the natural capacity, natural sink capacity in Europe by 2030, is related to everything that is not unmanaged, but managed land, and it's not agriculture. So those emissions, that's what we're talking about. And there's a lot of potential in Europe because we depleted our kind of natural spaces. It's pretty much all managed. And we calculated, for example, that if you would just take the European forests and you would cut down on the harvest rates on European forests, that, you know, a huge amount of more CO2 could be stored in these type of forests through more natural management, through more forest protection. So, of course, that has implications on the use of timber and the availability of timber. But it is a clear mechanisms to demand forestry policy changes and forest management changes on a national level. That's that. For the EU forest protection law that I talked about that tries to target supply chains, it's key to consider that, of course, and I think it was Taiba who you mentioned this as well, that of course the responsibility of, you know, elites and especially the global north in terms of driving deforestation is a key factor that can't be ignored and that needs to be challenged. And therefore, I think this law, at least from an NGO perspective from Europe, is a key element where we want to try to really make sure that yeah, also the governments and also the corporations within Europe are taking accountable for what they cause in other parts of the world, but also in Europe. This it would really kind of trigger potentially a paradigm shift because it's yeah, it's one of a kind. So far, no other market has a law like this, and we're working hard, of course, to make it as sound as possible, and also to think of other accompanying measures to make sure that it's not only kind of putting trade barriers in place for especially countries outside Europe, but also that Europe increases its support for the transition of, for example, agriculture production in other parts of the world by far, so that it goes hand in hand with supporting the transition in the land sector outside Europe. Short look into Germany and into what's happening here. I don't know if you heard, and it's compared to the other crises that we have in Canada or in the Amazon or the burning in Indonesia, probably peanuts. But also in Europe, especially over the last years, we've seen a lot of forest dying due to increasing climate impacts. This, for example, is a dead forest in the middle of Germany. And you see vast amounts of this popping up, developing over the last years in Germany, where huge areas are just dying off. We've been trying to get the government to understand that clear felling the dead stands and completely removing all biomass is not the best solution, because if you do that, the earth heats up. And especially on hot days, we saw temperatures on these type of clear fells of dying forests that went up below 50 degrees Celsius. So really, if forests are dying, and if you want to, you know, make sure that another forest grows, especially these type of plantations that are dying here in Germany. Leaving the biomass on the ground, securing water, the building of humus and soil biomatter is really key to make sure that the situation for new forests is there and beneficial for their growth. With the Green government now, I hope that changes, and with the like I said, the policy package that comes from the Green Deal and the climate law on EU level. Germany is now obliged to update its own national climate law with the LULUCF regulation that is now currently updated on EU level. Germany again will also have to increase in its climate law the goal set towards forest protection and forest restoration. As it stands now, the goal that we will probably get is going to be absolutely transformational or revolutionary for Germany, because we will have to do a lot to reach these goals through protecting more forest, and especially through managing forest, not so industrial, but very extensively. There's also movement on the CBD, or on the biodiversity front, in terms of protecting 15% of German forest under the biodiversity strategy that is currently developed, but also that corresponds with the EU level. Right. Yeah. Shortly, we also calculated what German forests can soak up, for example, under different management scenarios. And if you have a corresponding policy process that tries to figure out how you can reach these new goals for the land sector, and you can supply some good kind of science that can show what type of forest management, how much forest protection can actually help to support these goals, then I think yeah, you can have an impact in the policy making process, especially if you have a green part of a government that is responding to this, of course.
Just a couple more minutes, Giannis, if you could, please.
Finishing up, yes. Yeah, and what has been quite impressive as well over the last years is that in the mindset of people, forests have grown to be more important. We've seen a lot of social uprises, activist campaigns against, for example, motorways or the extension of coal mines and other industrial kind of overtakings of the small parts of forest that are left here. And these have been really impressive, because hundreds and thousands of people went into forest, built tree huts, occupied forest, and they got a lot of support from the broader society. So that's really positive to see. Yeah, and concluding, I think the challenge is of course huge, and on an international level, we're really up against a big mighty beast if we're looking at the biodiversity and the climate crisis. But and some people always think these international policy processes are way too slow and are way, are too complex and so on and so forth. But at least I see it sometimes as really vital that we have these international goals like the Paris Agreement now, because they can have an impact if you look at what trickles down on national level. And from bottom up, I think you can really use these processes to demand more, especially in relation to these national targets on the LULUCF sector and the ambition to increase the land sink potential. But yes, we definitely need more agency and more courage to protect forest, and to make sure that also what kind of mechanisms we choose to do so are just and are not forgetting, especially those who are most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giannis, for filling us in on what's happening in Germany and the EU. It's good also to have an example of where we feel that there's hope and pushback as well. And we've got hopes for the Green government in Germany, but I know you'll help hold them to it, which is important. We need the not-for-profit sector to do that as well. And I think it's something we can all take back is from the Paris Agreement, the LULUCF goals and also the Convention on Biological Diversity to see what our governments are doing on those and if they're living up to their agreements. That's something we can all do as Greens and to push harder on that. So that would be a big takeaway message from today's session or tonight's session, wherever you are. Now I think it's definitely time to go to Rwanda. So who will speak to us from Rwanda? Will it be Alex or Gishumba?
Gishumba is on the line.
Oh, hi, Gishumba. How are you? Can you hear us?
Just promoting Gishumba to a panelist and he'll be with us shortly.
Thank you. We only have 15 minutes left for the session, so
hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine.
Nice to hear you.
Nice to meet you. I am sorry I take the wrong link following
That's
the email
okay.
we received, and I was following like
no. We got given the wrong link. It's okay. You're here now. Don't worry.
Okay.
Gishumba, you're our final speaker, and we're just at the end, so if you could do a 8-minute session would be excellent. Millie, do you want to get the African presentation up and Gishumba can run through it for us? Would you mind doing that?
Yeah.
Thank you. That would be the third presentation you got. But Gishumba, would you like to start to talk and we'll get the presentation up?
Yes. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, giving my presentation in this very important conference. As you have also mentioned, global forest protection is the key for sustainable conservation, biodiversity, and absorbing carbon emission. But yet we are losing our forests at an alarming rate. So this conference is a way of raising or creating initiative through support that will be important to highlight part of the way to reverse the forest and the ecosystem destruction. My presentation is going to give a brief overview of Africa forests geography and the situation of forest in Rwanda as well as the key driver of deforestation in Rwanda. Yes, key impacts both locally and beyond, the trends and what can be done or what is being done. Next, Africa is the world's second largest continent. It has that number of miles, and it is the home of 54 countries with different language and a lot of people, like 800 million, which make like 10% of the world's population. The one thing that all Africans we have in common is our reliance on the land's physical characteristic, which affect where people live, work, and trade. So our Africa can be divided into many different regions if we are talking about the forest and the landscape, which are the Sahara, Sahel, the Savannah, the tropical rainforests, the Ethiopian highland, and the South Africa. If you can see on the image down, next, please. Next. Dear Michelle, next. Hello, do you hear me? Hello? Yes, thank you very much. That is if we are talking in my presentation, I am talking briefly on the savanna and the rain forest. The Africa savanna are hot, dry grassroots, and they are located near the equator and cover almost the half of Africa. And the actual cover the region that's north and the south of rainforests that lie along the equator. The African savanna is the largest in the world. There is a large variety of wildlife here in Africa, including lion, zebra, elephant, just to mention among others. And the farming here in Africa is good, but only if the rainfall is good also. That means our farming is depending on rain. The area receives enough rain to support the drought resistance undergrowth, but not enough to support forest type vegetation. Grasses are tall and thin, while trees are short and scattered. Next. Make the next, those are the photo of savanna, and they also to put it on the map. Next, because I have a short time. Go next. Yeah, after the savanna, we talk about the tropical rainforests. Yes. Africa is a tropical rainforest is located along the central coast of Africa near the equator as a savanna as well. It lies on the Congo River basin. The rainforest cover 1/5 of the land. As you are looking at the photo there, and as you are looking at the photo, yeah, those are the photo for the example of the rainforest. Next, we go after those brief presentation of geography of Africa forest. We go to the situation of Rwanda. Rwanda pledged to reach 30%, which we have now cover by 2020, and promoting private sector involvement in the management of public forests. And the forests in Rwanda occupy about 724,662 hectares, which is 30.4% of the country's land. Of the forest, yes, and this is the natural forest. We have natural forest, which is between 1-2 hectares, and the forest plantation and the wood savanna and bamboo. So the table below is showing how the forests are on by the district. Rwanda is made by 30 administrative districts. That's how the table, if you will read on it, to show the coverage of forest by the district. And also you will see how the deforestation is by the district. Now, next, please. Yes, this is show how the forest cover tip. If you bamboo forest plantation, there is also natural forest, and those the class less than. You see the forest greater than 2 hectares. We have many, like 258 hectares, and the plantation is the second, and also there is those that are in less of 0.5 hectares. They are a small forest because of our country is small. Also, we have small plot of land or woodland. Next. Yeah, that is how the data by the whole district, as I told you, we have 30 districts. Those are the number. Next. Yes. The cover change, how this table is showing how we have faced the deforestation with a decade of from 9. This data is from 2009 and 2018. The cause of deforestation in Rwanda. Rwanda deforestation was driven by the need for new land for cultivation, looking for food, medicine plants, charcoal and timber, especially for commercial products, and also tree for construction and firewood for household use. The impact of deforestation in Rwanda and its surrounding region, as you know, environment doesn't have the border. If you are suffering on this side, in the neighboring country also they suffer. They suffer. So the loss of tree in the region, in our region, if we are talking like Central and East Africa, has had several environmental consequences. Among those, there is the loss of biodiversity, water and air pollution, climate change that affect people and the biodiversity, either by long dry season or by unexpected heavy rain accompanied by floods, which make people losing the food and the hungry, so that there is a death of people. Efforts of
We've
Rwanda.
only got a few minutes before we get cut off before the next session. Just so you know. Millie, could we go for 5 minutes longer?
We only 2 minutes is enough.
Okay, no, we can just go for a little bit longer. Don't worry. Keep going, please.
Okay. Thank you. I am now on the efforts of Rwanda to reverse this situation. The government of Rwanda have put a lot of efforts for fighting against deforestation, and they have put in place the permanent or sometimes even temporal health to the activity that drive the deforestation, which can have important effects. It is in this context that the government of Rwanda put in place a permanent campaign of afforestation, where every year in the first week of November, it is in the whole country a week of plantation, tree plantation in the whole country. This campaign have contributed on limiting the deforestation and increasing the afforestation. Also, there is a strong governance and enforcement, where the policy and the law for protecting the forests have put in place and are working, which manage the protection of the forest and also governing the tree harvesting. There is also a combination of environmental action with social and economic development you see, empowering the local community and decentralizing the forest management decision using methods such as prioritization of planting indigenous trees, not only planting exotic trees, and also the community forest management system have been reinforced by also making a privatization of management of public forests and put the management of those forests in the hand of private. Those efforts have linked ecosystem services and the poverty reduction, which results in a good impact. The partnership is needed, I say, to help our government to accomplish and achieve those targets put in place. We need the cooperation on the partnership of community and the different stakeholders to join hands with for empowering the community and the sustainable conservation. Here in Ledo, we say, where grow trees, people grow. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Great to hear from all the positive work you're doing there. So I'd really like to give a huge thanks from everyone to our forest defenders in Indonesia, Taiba and Fahimi, Jose Carlos in Brazil, Giannis in EU and globally politically, and Kushumba in Rwanda in Africa. So thank you very much. I'm really sorry we didn't have time to hear from some more people. I know we had representatives here from a number of other countries with forest issues, such as from Canada and Australia. It's time to go to the other session. What we will do is a follow-up. The panelists and I will keep talking to each other so we can work out how we can liaise more as a global community of Greens on issues around forests, and we'll therefore most likely in a month or two have a Zoom call on that. So if you've put your name in the chat box, we've recorded it and we'll keep you informed. Once again, huge thank you to everyone for making it from very remote areas at very different time zones. Really appreciate all the fantastic work you do. All the best. Thanks for participants too.